What's up, everybody? Benji Bruce here with SpeakingLifestyle.com, and in this video we're going to talk about just 6 reasons, 6 things, 6 thingamajiggers, reasons, whatever, as to why people don't like you on camera or why people will dislike you on camera. Now you might be saying, well, I don't really care if people like me or not, I don't care. And that's not how you want to do it, especially if you're building a business, because look, if people don't like you, they're not going to buy from you. It's that simple. It doesn't matter what you're selling. If people don't like you, they simply won't buy from you. They won't pay attention to you. I mean, think about all the people that you don't like. Do you watch their stuff? Do you listen to their podcast? Do you buy from them? Absolutely not. It's one thing to not care about judgments, but you have to be aware of whether or not people like you, because the better you're liked, the easier everything's going to be. And why would you purposefully make people dislike you just to make everything hard on yourself? So there's no reason to make people dislike you on purpose. So here's a couple reasons as to why people dislike you on camera. Number 1, sounding weak. What I mean by sounding weak is basically like, let's say I do this over again to where, okay, I'm going to sound weak as I say that. Number 1, sounding weak. So like you see the difference. It's like if you don't show your confidence when you are delivering content, when you are producing videos or podcasts or whatever, if you don't show your confidence, you sound weak and people don't pay attention to you. So you want to make sure that you're showing this, and you got to think energy transfers. So if you sound weak, damn, I just pointed to myself saying sounded weak. Oh, I'm not weak, shoot. But here's the thing, if you sound weak, then people won't pay attention to you, because it's kind of like if you don't believe in yourself, why should other people believe in it? So you got to remember that energy transfers. And so sounding like you don't want to be there is going to screw up everything. And I don't want to mention the people who work in a certain place where it's like they don't want to be there. You've probably seen people like that, to where they work somewhere and it just feels like they don't want to be there. You know, they're just like, okay. And so a lot of people do the same thing on camera. And if you do that on camera, you sound like you don't want to be there. You sound weak. You don't show that confidence, and people aren't going to pay attention to you. They're just not going to like you. Number 2 is, what is number 2? Being too perfect. And I did not, by the way, damn it, now I gotta do this over again. Number 2, being too perfect. You gotta remember the whole Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is basically people love to see the downfall of successful people. People just love to see it. People get pleasure in other people's pain, and that's why Schadenfreude exists. So that's why when you hear about, a billionaire lost all his money, or YouTuber goes to jail, or like when you hear all this stuff, that's why all the news is bad. When you hear all this stuff, the Schadenfreude takes over, and you kind of get this pleasure, this pain, this pleasure from other people's pain. So when you're too perfect, that's what happens. People are like, well, something's wrong with this dude. Like, come on, man, you can't be too perfect. Well, I mean, unless you are perfect. I mean, just saying. But you got to understand that perfection isn't relatable. And so as you're creating content, if you want people to like you, and you should want people to like you when you're creating content, you have to be relatable, and perfection isn't relatable. This is why if you follow like any superhero stuff, Superman is really hard in terms of creating movies and comics and all that, because he's perfect. The dude is like strong as hell. I mean, like, he's perfect. So you can't actually win against this dude, and it's hard to write stories for him because he's not relatable. Whereas someone like Batman, who's like the number 1 superhero, he's not perfect. That's why he's number 1. He has all these problems going on, so everything is relatable. I mean, the dude's kind of crazy in the head, but still, you gotta understand that perfection isn't relatable, so you can't be too perfect. I mean, unless you are perfect, just saying. Number 3, and this is going back to number 2, is number 3 is not being relatable. So number 3, not being relatable. You got to think about what common experience do you share with your audience. And if you're not relatable, once again, people aren't going to pay attention. So you got to make sure that you're being relatable with people. It's like, for example, talking about expensive cars. You're sitting there, well, the other day I bought my mansion, and buying my mansion, it was just, I just had all these problems because, I wanted to pay cash, but they wouldn't let me. I tried to drop $10 million. For some reason, they wouldn't let me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put up my Lamborghini and my helicopter as collateral for the bank. They were just like, no, I'm sorry. So it's like, if you're not relatable, people are going to tune out. I mean, sure, they're going to be kind of curious if you're talking about all this expensive stuff, but it's one of the reasons why people make fun of these gurus who are like, oh, I'm with my Lamborghini and all that sort of stuff. Like, oh, look at all the money I got. People make fun of them because it's just not relatable. And so you got to understand, if you're not relatable, you're going to be very disliked. Number 4 is not showing personality. So if you don't show personality, it's like, what are they there for? You got to remember that. If you're not showing personality, there's no reason for them to stay. And just think about it like this. People tune in for the topic, but they stay for the personality. The topic gets the click, the personality gets remembered. And that's how you want to think about it. This is why I tell people, like, you know, when people stiff up on camera and they're like, when they first start and they're just like, hello, everybody, I'm going to teach you about marketing. And it's they remove their personality from it. By removing the personality from it, people tune away. They click away and they dislike it because it's kind of like, well, what's the purpose? So you got to remember that you got to add in your personality whenever you're communicating with the video, podcast, whatever it is. Just add in that personality, whatever it is. I mean, then the way you add in the personality is you got to think about, like, what do you like when you're at home alone? What do you like when you're with friends? And that's how you want to act on camera, and then you're going to naturally show your personality. Number 5, I've talked about this several times in several videos. Basically, number 5 is taking too long to get to the point. You get the point? OMG. Number 6 is interrupting guests. So this is if you have guests on a podcast or something. This is people when I freaking hate it when people interrupt a guest. And it's not even just interrupting a guest. It is when the podcast person or the person on the video, when they're interviewing the other person and they chime in too much. So it's kind of like, let's say I'm interviewing Elon Musk, right? So hey, Elon, how'd you build the business? Well, and as he's talking, I interrupt him. Of course, people hate that. But let's say as he's talking, he says something, some point. Well, I mean, I visualize, whatever he says. And then all of a sudden I add in my 2 cents and it keeps going on. Oh, yeah, I get it. I mean, yeah, the visualization thing, I mean, it's really, really good. It really helps out a lot. And like I'm adding on to it. People are thinking like, dude, come on. I clicked for the guest, not for you. Come on, man. So if you want to see this done really well in terms of people who have guests on and people are like really good at interviewing them, don't interrupt, and they like have an actual conversation, look at Impact Theory. The guy's named Tom Bilyeu, I think that's how you say his name. But the way he interviews guests is really, really good. And another lady, Natalie Workman, when she interviewed Grant Cardone, that's the only video I saw with her interviewing somebody, but that was freaking one of the best interviews I've seen someone do, because it's like they're having a conversation. She's not interrupting him. So it's like when he stops, boom, she talks. So if you interrupt guests, people are just going to absolutely hate your guts. And a bonus one for you, if you want people to dislike you, like if you're like, I don't care what people think about me. If you want people to dislike you, here's a bonus one. Talk bad about pets and you are done. Your career, everything's done. They're going to find you and you know what's up.